Hey, if you are a sales enablement professional or even a sales pro moving into sales enablement and you're trying to figure out how to get through that recruiter screen, there are lots of really great jobs out there, but getting past that recruiter or even getting to that recruiter can be challenging. So in this session, my very good friend, Alessandra Gardner, joined me and my sales enablement pro community to talk a little bit about the recruiter's perspective. So what does she look for? What keywords? Why are those important? How to think about positioning yourself for success in a competitive sales enablement marketplace. Let's get to it. So let's start with the recruiter's perspective. I pulled Alessandra's LinkedIn profile. She not only represents for the greatest good, she is the greatest good. She is such an incredible partner. But I invited her to spend a little time with us on how she thinks about hiring for roles, what she's looking for, how she's sourcing, what she's doing when she's getting hundreds of applications. So with that, Alessandra, I'm going to go on mute and hand it off to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for inviting me and nice to see all of you. And thank you for letting me join. And Caroline, as she mentioned, she and I work together at Bonterra, and I'm one of the talent acquisition partners working there for Social Good. And so I'm excited to talk to all of you a little bit. You'll excuse me, I did just take some notes. So if I'm looking down, that's basically what I'm doing. But there were some important things that I feel like, we could touch on, and basically understanding just first and foremost kind of how difficult 2023 has been, especially in tech, and 2024 is proving to be kind of the same. With just like a lot of layoffs and a lot of things happening, there's a lot of people who are in the market for jobs. And so I'm happy to talk a little bit about what it's like from my end, as a recruiter, what I'm looking for, how I go about trying to find the best candidates for some of these roles. And so I wanted to kind of start off by saying there are some positions that that we find ourselves hiring for, and we could have over 1,000 applications that land into just one job requisition. And so the question is, how do we sort through these? How do we find the best person for the role? And there's a few different things that we do. So we can use actually the applicant tracking system, and I can try and filter it through, right? So I'm looking for like keywords, right? These are key search words that I'm looking for. If it's an enablement role, I might be looking for somebody who's used Salesforce, who's used Lessonly, or somebody who's done project management, or somebody who has experience with, SaaS-based solutions. And these are kind of these keywords. So when you're applying to different positions, it's really important to be updating your resume to basically kind of match what the job description says. There are a lot of companies who the recruiters will use the ATS, and your application will scan through. And if you don't have any of those words on there, it's not even going to get looked at. So make sure when you look at a job description for something that you're applying for, that you're putting these specific words that are under the requirements there. Now, the same thing goes for LinkedIn as well, because a lot of times if I'm hiring for a role that's very specific, and the hiring manager wants something that's very niche, I will create a project on LinkedIn Recruiter, and I will do the same thing. I'll filter it out with specific things that I am looking for. Again, if it's like a specific LMS that you're using, or a specific customer management system, or something like that. So you want to make sure that you're always keeping your LinkedIn up to date as well, and adjusting it too. Something that's really important too, that Caroline and I talked about also, is like, we love metrics, right? Any type of metrics that you can pull, or even that you remember, in your enablement role, putting on your resume, putting on your LinkedIn. This is just like so good for us to see, because we love to see metrics and understand exactly how you were performing in your role. So that's kind of a little bit, I guess, in the beginning to talk about filtering out, right? Now, internal referrals, I think, are really important. So if you have people in your network who are saying, hey, my company is hiring, you might be good for this role, make sure that you're asking them, hey, can you be my referral? Or when you're applying to the position, you want to mark them as your referral. For me, in the system that I use, if somebody is marked as an internal referral, that automatically jumps them to the top of the queue. So if I have 1,000 people in this requisition that I'm going to have to try and get through, you'll be at the top of that if you're an internal referral. So always lean on your network if you can. Even if it's, you know, posting on LinkedIn and everything like that, and somebody comments on it, that's huge. Now I will say the same thing too about reaching out, right? This is a big question that I feel like a lot of people have. A lot of people have asked me, hey, like, be honest, you know, is there really a point in reaching out to a recruiter on LinkedIn? Because, you know, I know a lot of times you may not get a response if you reach out to a recruiter on LinkedIn, but I promise you, it is such a good idea to do. I've had so many people reach out to me on LinkedIn about different roles. And again, if I have like 1,000 applications that are inside this position, where do I start? Well, if somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, you know, I've applied for this role, want to talk to you more about it, can we schedule some time? Even if you're not entirely qualified for it, I can guarantee that you're going to get looked at. So I'm going to take your name and go find it in my ATS, and you're going to get looked at and you're going to get an update either way. So definitely reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn is worth it. Try to find a hiring manager, somebody who's within that department as well, because I do have hiring managers who come to me and you know, pass names along of somebody who reached out to them. So it's always good to show the initiative. So
Die.
Alessandra, quick question on the
Yeah.
on internal referrals. Is it better to have somebody submit your resume or somebody that you know that you talk with between once you've submitted and once you have your interview?
Oh, so I definitely think like it's before you have the interview, because, you know, you want to, that's basically how you're going to be, that's how you're going to be looked at. And I'm speaking from my experience, is that usually when you go to apply for a position, there's a tab or a drop down that's asking you for your source, because we like to collect this kind of information as a talent team. We want to see where our candidates are coming from. Are they coming from LinkedIn? Are they coming from Indeed? Are they coming from Built In? Are they coming from, you know, like internal referrals, right? And so you'll typically be able to select referred by current employee, and then you can put that employee's name. And then the system will recognize that as a referral and it will jump you to the top of the queue. Hopefully I answered that question.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. Thanks for asking. I think there were a couple of other just like tips and tricks that I wanted to talk about as well. I wanted to talk about, I guess also what we were talking about with Caroline is like do's and don'ts, right? Something that is so important, and I can't stress it enough, and I know it doesn't sound like a huge deal, but just please make sure that you're going over your resume and making sure that it's structured correctly. Make sure there are no typos in there. I've worked with hiring managers before who, if there's any aspect to the position that requires writing, like even if you're going out for an instructional designer role or something like that, where you're going to have to be putting curriculum together, typos can make or break you. So I mean, honestly, just make sure that everything is looking correct on your resume and that there's no mistakes or anything like that as best as you can. And so typos are a huge thing. I wanted to also talk about gaps in resume, because that's a really big one that I feel a lot of people have been bringing up lately too, especially I know somebody personally who was impacted by a layoff, and then they immediately got hired to another company, and then they were laid off again a month later. And it's difficult. It's very difficult, and you could be confused and not sure what to do with your resume. This person in particular was concerned that it was messing with their tenure, right? Like, it looks like I'm job hopping now when I'm not. Put it in your resume, right? And you can always explain it. If there's a gap in your resume, that's okay. I've seen people who've talked about, you know, like having to take a year off to take care of family or something like that. And that's completely fine. If you do have a gap in your resume, just please make sure that you are able to speak on that and kind of speak on what you were doing. There's a lot of people who do freelance work in between jobs, and that's good too, just as long as we know that you were actually kind of doing something during that time, don't stress too much about the gaps. But if you happen to be in the position where you have been laid off, don't worry about that gap, right? Like we in talent, we of all people know, we know how difficult this has been, and there's a lot of people who have been impacted by layoffs in the last year or so. So again, as long as you can speak to it, I think that's really what matters the most. I think there's two more things that I want to touch on, and I'll make them kind of quick. But a lot of people also ask about cover letters, right? That's a huge one, talking about cover letters. And I'm here to tell you that personally, as recruiters, a lot of us don't really have the time to even read through them. So I don't think cover letters are actually necessary. The only time that I would suggest putting a cover letter together is if somebody is going out for an entry level role, because that's a little bit harder for us to sort through. A lot of people can be eligible or qualified for an entry level position, so that's when a cover letter comes into play. Why do you want to come work for a company like Bonterra? We're social good. Have you worked with nonprofits? Are you passionate about the space? That's when that comes into play. Another time would be maybe if you're going out for a role that you feel you have transferable skills for, that works too. And you can use a cover letter to kind of explain it. But if you're going out for an enablement role and it's something similar to what you've been doing in the past, my suggestion is just axe it. And then the last thing that I will say too, and I could be, again, a lot of y'all could be doing this already. Maybe you are, maybe you have in the past. But if you're meeting with a recruiter, and especially if you move on to the first department round interview, send a follow-up email right after you've met with some sort of a hiring manager or somebody. Just always send a follow-up email. It seems simple. It seems like, I don't know, it is seen. I promise you it's seen. A lot of people will send it to me and ask, can you pass this along to the hiring manager? And I can't tell you how many of my hiring managers that I've worked with, Caroline's probably one of them, who love to see that, right? It shows that you've gone the extra mile to go ahead and just thank us for our time and everything like that. So following up with an email, putting yourself back on the radar again is always a good idea. So I do feel like I kind of spitfired through a lot of that, but my LinkedIn is clearly here on the screen. And honestly, like, if any of you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to just drop me a note or a message telling me that you attended the webinar, so I know. And I would be happy to be in y'all's network. And if any enablement roles come up here, if anybody's looking, I can network and everything like that. But I just appreciate letting me join in and speak to some of you. And yeah, thank you. Oh, I think there's questions.
This
Caroline.
is awesome. Yeah, I was going to say there's some questions. So Bill, why don't I go up first? Take it away.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, good. I was having some audio stuff. This has been great, Alessandra, and appreciate all of the sort of the behind the scenes suggestions, because I would imagine like it's, on the candidate side, it can be pretty dehumanizing not knowing what's going on, right? So giving people context is really great. One thing that I heard from you that I personally struggle with, and I've had a long career, so it's like, how much do I keep on my resume, blah, 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 is the tech stuff, right? This is a hard one for us in enablement, because we still have what could be considered a new profession. And I have empathy for a talent acquisition person that doesn't know that Highspot is the same thing as Seismic. But it's also frustrating to those of us who have rolled out like an entire enablement platform, like one of the big ones or something like that. And if you don't have the same one that this recruiter is looking for, then for some reason that's not a fit, which we know on our side, right? Like,
yeah,
if you rolled out Seismic, you can roll out Highspot. It's like, or Outreach and Sales Loft or something like that, where like,
yeah.
how do How do we best
Yeah.
sort of approach that kind of thing?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And so, and I apologize. I think I threw out like Lessonly because that's the one that we use, and that was the
No,
only
it's
one I
fine.
could think of off the top of my head. But you know, honestly, so another thing that I can talk about real quick is that I do have um as a recruiter before, so when a role opens up and is assigned to me, the first thing that I do is I schedule like a consultation, right? Or some sort of intake meeting with the hiring manager. And yes, if we use Lessonly or if we use HighSpot or Seismic or whatever it is, one of my questions that I'm always asking is, you know, what tools should I be looking for? And yeah, they'll say, hey, like Lessonly is going to be ideal because that's what we use. But if they have HighSpot, if they have Seismic or something like that, that is transferable as well. So again, please don't think also that the system will just run only for Lessonly. It might, but it'll like kind of rank them a little bit higher. And also, I'll be honest with you, like at Bonterra, we're using Workday, where I don't actually have that the you know luxury of having the system. I'm going through some of these, filtering it myself, right? And so I'll look for stuff. I mean, I think Caroline and I hired somebody onto the team who came straight from like working for a school district, right? Writing curriculum and everything there. So like it's really about pushing
People who
those
did that. Yeah.
transferable skills and everything like that. Yeah. Yeah. And we do look, and I obviously I can't speak for everybody, but speaking for myself on this side, we definitely look at transferable skills. So like we wouldn't say, you know, oh, he's, you know, used HighSpot but not Seismic or vice versa. You know, to us that would be transferable. And if there's other aspects, like the fact that you've built out this entire kind of process, right? I mean, to me, that would look huge. And that's something that I would push you forward for. Unless the hiring manager is very, very, very specific on something, which can definitely be frustrating, and it happens. But just so you know, that's kind of our mindset, is that we're looking at, I keep saying transferable skills, but I'm trying to make it land, right? Because we're looking at it from a whole. So I hope
That
I answered your question.
you did, and I think something I heard in there that was really like cathartic for me, and almost like, you know, a little bit of I got you on this. Whereas like I think coaching the hiring manager to not be so specific on that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, because then you miss out on somebody who's maybe an arguably better talent. It's like, do you value
Yeah.
that somebody's used this technology, or do you value that they know what they're doing? Right. So
Yeah.
I think that's great knowing that people like you are coaching back to the hiring manager on that kind of stuff, and where you put this stuff in the priority list. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks
I
for the
think, Bill, just
question.
to follow up on that point, to Alessandra's point earlier about reaching out to the recruiter on LinkedIn, you might even say that, right? I've just applied for this role. It
Mhm.
indicates in the job description you want somebody who has Lessonly experience. I've actually got something very similar, highly transferable skill. But what you'll see on my resume is X, right? And so maybe you can
Yeah.
even make some of those connections, because honestly, depending on how seasoned they are in sales enablement, they themselves may not know that Seismic and HighSpot are that similar. If they're
Exactly.
rolling that, right? You might be being hired by
Yeah.
a chief revenue officer or a head of sales, and to them, those are different, right? Zahara, let me go to you.
Yeah, I have a question about reaching out the recruiters directly. So from my personal experience, when you have someone like the recruiter, which is part of your network, it's pretty easy to get in touch. Or if it's like the second tier, so you can always connect with someone who know that person and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're interested in some type of jobs and you don't really have any connections related
Yeah.
to the career manager. And so in these cases, what I realized that my conversion rate was really low when I would send a direct message to the recruiter, and I would never get a reply from it. So what would you recommend to someone who is in this position, like me, for example? Like I'm looking for a job, like I think that's a great fit for me. I want to reach out directly to either hiring manager or recruiter, but I'm not getting a reply. And
Yeah.
what do you think is appropriate? How many times should I reach out before just drop it?
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing. And I do say, like, myself, I definitely try to respond as many times as I can. It's even if it's, hey, I'm interested, I applied for this role. If it's a role that I'm not working, but my colleague is, I will say, hey, I've floated your name and resume by my colleague, and I really will. I'm not saying that, just to say it, like, I will do that. But also, we all get busy, right? And I think I at one point had almost 100, connect requests in my inbox, and sometimes you can't keep up with all of it. And I'm just here at Bonterra. There could be people at larger companies who are getting like twice as many as I am. And so it is difficult, and you're not always going to hear back. But I think that, something, again, and I'm trying to be careful how I say this, but for me, it's easier for me to respond to somebody who has applied for a role or knows specifically what they are going out for. If somebody is saying, hey, I'm really interested in what Bonterra is doing, I would love to be a part of the team. Can we connect and find time to talk? I will accept your request. But the truth is, I just might not also have the time to kind of look through your profile and look at what we're hiring for and everything like that. If I do, I definitely will. But I think, if you don't hear back, I would reach out one, maybe two more times before dropping it. But it kind of just varies from recruiter to recruiter. And I can really kind of only speak from my own personal experience, but I would also be kind of mindful about reaching out, if you've applied for a specific position. And I heard what you said about, maybe I don't have any networks at this company or something, but I'm interested in what they're doing and everything like that. So yeah, just send some sort of a message to the recruiter that I think is going to stand out and is like not meaningful, but something that is intentional, right? Try to be as intentional as you can so that I can read your message and know why you're reaching out, what you're interested in, and everything like that. And then I can accept it and keep you in my back pocket. And I feel like I'm rambling a bit here, but I do feel like, LinkedIn is such an amazing tool. It really is, especially from my perspective, because 2-3 months down the line, a role could open up, and I will remember having this conversation with somebody like you. And I will, again, I can't stress enough that I'm speaking really for myself here, but I will reach back out to see if somebody is interested. Like, I try to keep these people in my back pocket. That's what LinkedIn is for. It's for creating this network, right? So use it to your advantage, and please try not to get disheartened. I understand that it is really difficult in the job market, especially when you're not hearing back, but continue to reach out if you can, because there are people on the other end who will respond.
Thank you, Alessandra. I know you have a 12:30 or 11:30 your time to get to. Do you have time for one more question, or do you need to hop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope, I have time. Yeah.
Reg, go for it.
Yeah, thank you. So Alessandra, I have just two quick questions. I'll be quick. So once in LinkedIn job postings, I see that they list out 10 skills that are required, up to 10 skills that are required. So if you're a match for, say, 6 or 7 or 8 of those, because it's not possible that you may match all the 10 skills, but what
Yeah.
would you say would be like the minimum threshold usually that they look at for getting you called for the next round or for the interview? That's my first question. And my second
Mhm.
question is, if the job posting, because a lot of enablement postings say that they just want someone with a bachelor's degree, but if you
Mhm.
have an MBA or a master's, would that make you overqualified or overlooked? So these are my two questions.
Yeah. So these are really good questions as well. And I think that for me, the skills, like, there's skills and then there's requirements. And again, it kind of just varies, right? Like, there are certain requirements, and I'm trying to think, like perhaps for an enablement role, it's like experience using some sort of LMS, or I'm trying to think of maybe other examples, but I can also
Whether
tell
it's
you that there's,
facilitation or
Yeah.
it depends on the types of what the job description includes typically, right, Alessandra?
Yes, it does. And it's difficult to say because it really does vary between job to job. But of those skills, I would say that probably maybe like 3 of them, and they're usually going to be the 3 that you'll see towards the top, because those are the first ones that, you know, the hiring manager is thinking of, are going to be the 3 that are probably the most important. The rest of them, for the most part, are going to probably be considered nice to haves. And that's another conversation that I have with hiring managers. And it's a specific question I ask. Hey, this is what the requirements are showing, these 10 skills. Of these 10, what is a must have? Like, if they don't have this on their resume, we're not even considering them. And then they'll tell me which ones. And then, you know, the other ones are kind of nice to have. And that's, you know, again, that's on my side of the fence. Like, as a candidate, you don't know that exactly. But I will say, if you look at maybe the top 3 of those skills, those are probably going to be the most important ones. Especially, you know, if they're looking for, also if they say 5+ years experience doing X, Y, and Z, if you have 3-4 years, still apply. Please still apply. We're not gonna pass on somebody good just because they don't have 5 years. Again, like, it is different. It varies from company to company and recruiter to recruiter. But for me, if I feel like I have somebody who's really good and they've, you know, been doing this for coming up on 4 years now, I'm not going to pass on them because they don't meet the 5-year mark. And then
That overqualification question, that's a great
yes,
one.
thank you. Thank you. So I have never, so let me start off by saying Bonterra, the company I work for, we have actually done away with, we've done away with like educational or degree requirements. I think that's part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, right? There could be very, very smart people out there who perhaps haven't, you know, didn't have the means to attend college or something, but they still have the skill set. But having said that, if you have your bachelor's, even if you are applying for a job that's outside of Bonterra and the bachelor's is required, to me, a master's is not going to mean you're overqualified or anything like that. You'll know if you're going out for a role, if you have, you know, sometimes I'm hiring for, like, I don't know, maybe like an inside sales representative, for example. And then I come across a resume of somebody who's been in sales for 20 years. To me, that's going to look overqualified. Like, maybe it's just too many years and stuff like that. But as far as degrees and everything go, no, I don't think so. So there could be an instance where like a position for educational purposes, like at Bonterra, require like an MBA. If we're doing like an MBA program or an internship, we do need to see that you're involved in school. But I don't think that degrees or, you know, bachelor's or master's are going to count you as being overqualified. It might just be kind of your tenure that might do that. If you're going for a role that's like, if you've been a director or something of like enablement and you're going out for more of like an entry level role, that's when it gets a little bit questionable. But don't worry about your degrees. We love to see the bachelor's, we love to see the master's, and we love to see people with experience who didn't go to college. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
Thank you so much,
Alessandra, this
Alessandra.
is awesome. You probably see why I invited her to come, because she is just awesome. And I'm not going to tell you who sent me this in the chat, but I do want to, before you hop off, Alessandra, you got some props and to me over direct message. Screening can be so misguided and dehumanizing, and it's great that she's made a lot of human suggestions. So I think you totally hit the person who sent that to me. Thank you. But I think that you totally hit on why you are such an incredible partner. You all may not be as fortunate to have that type of partner in who if you are a hiring manager or if you're going through an interviewing process, but hopefully some of the tips and tricks she provided can help you push on the places where you may expect to get some good connection points with a recruiter. So Alessandra, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. And I know I am one of 2 recruiters at my company, so I am busy, but I can't stress enough, just try and reach out to me and connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message. And if you are set up for a screening or an interview and you just want some tips, like, just please let me know ahead of time, and I'm happy to try and give tips however I can.
Love it. All right. Thank
Thanks
you so
for
much.
having
Well,
me.
have a fantastic weekend. Stay as long as you want, but I know you have a call. So I'm gonna pick it up from here. If you've made it all the way through to this part of the recording, you are either a sales pro, a sales enablement pro, or certainly on your way to being. For more tips and tricks like this, follow me on my LinkedIn page. or you can like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, or both. Find me at Toying with This Idea. If you need coaching, whether it's for you as an individual or for your team, as well as things like training, tools, talk tracks, tech optimization, any of the things that are going to support your go-to-market effectiveness, you can also find me on LinkedIn or reach out to me via my website, Toying with This Idea. Get out there, go crush it, have fun.